Part 1. The message arrived on a cold morning in March. Ambassador Daniel Harper sat in his office on the orbital station above Earth, drinking coffee and reviewing trade reports. The screen on his desk flashed red. That meant urgent communication from the Galactic Council. Harper set down his cup and opened the message. His face went pale as he read. The Council was summoning him to Velcara Prime immediately. Humanity was accused of breaking the non-interference accords. The charges were serious. 3 species had been expelled from the Council in its 10,000-year history for such violations. Katie Sullivan entered the office moments later. She was Harper's military advisor, a sharp woman with red hair and quick eyes. She saw his expression and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. Harper turned the screen toward her. Katie read quickly. Her jaw tightened. "This is insane. We didn't violate the accords. Someone's setting us up." "Maybe," Harper said, "but we still have to answer the charges. Get Commander Bennett. Tell him to prepare the Horizon for immediate departure." The Horizon was Earth's diplomatic escort ship. Lucas Bennett, its captain, was a careful man who took his duties seriously. Within 3 hours, the ship was ready. Harper and Katie boarded along with a small staff. The journey to Velcara Prime would take 5 days. During the trip, Katie dug into the evidence. The Council claimed that a human science ship called the Magellan had visited Kepler 442b. This planet was home to the Velnari, a species that had only recently invented radio. Making contact with them was strictly forbidden under Council law. The evidence looked bad. Sensor logs showed the Magellan in orbit. Shuttle launches were recorded. The Velnari themselves reported seeing strange beings. But Katie noticed something odd about the data. The sensor signatures didn't quite match human technology. The shuttle trajectories were slightly wrong. Small details, but important ones. "Someone faked this," she told Harper. "I don't know how or why, but this data has been altered." Harper studied the information carefully. "Captain York wouldn't violate the accords. She's been in service for 20 years and never had a single complaint. This doesn't make sense." "Unless someone wants us out of the Council," Katie said. "We've made enemies. We're new, we're growing fast, and some species don't like that." Harper nodded slowly. "We'll need more than suspicions. We need proof, and we need it fast." When the Horizon arrived at Velcara Prime, Harper was struck by the size of the station. It orbited a dying red star, a massive structure that had stood for thousands of years. Ships from dozens of species filled the docking bays. The station was neutral ground where the Council met to make decisions affecting the entire galaxy. Guards escorted Harper to the Council chamber. The room was enormous, built in a circle with seats rising in tiers. Representatives from 47 species sat waiting. At the center stood a raised platform where the accused would stand. Harper recognized the design. It was meant to make you feel small and alone. High Arbiter Zelthoran presided over the assembly. He was a crystalline being, tall and shimmering from one of the founding species. His voice sounded like chimes when he spoke. "Ambassador Harper of Earth," Zelthoran said, "you stand accused of violating the sacred non-interference accords. How do you answer these charges?" Harper walked to the center platform. He felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. "High Arbiter, humanity denies these charges. We respect the accords and have never knowingly violated them. The evidence presented has inconsistencies that suggest manipulation." A murmur ran through the chamber. Many delegates looked skeptical. One stood up, a reptilian creature with scales that gleamed in the light. "Inconsistencies. Your species has always been reckless. You expand too fast, take too many risks. Perhaps you simply made a mistake and now seek to hide it." Others joined in. Humanity had been part of the Council for only 15 years. Many older species resented the newcomers. They saw this as an opportunity to put Earth in its place. Harper remained calm. He presented the technical data Katie had found. He explained the sensor discrepancies and trajectory errors. He pointed out that Captain York's record was spotless, but the Council seemed unmoved. They had already decided humanity was guilty. Then Zelthoran raised a hand for silence. "The evidence is indeed troubling," he said. "Under normal circumstances, I would recommend immediate expulsion. However, there is an alternative." The chamber grew quiet. Harper felt his heart beating faster. "Ancient Council law provides for the trial of worth," Zelthoran continued. "If a species faces expulsion but wishes to prove its value to the Council, it may accept a challenge. Only twice in our history has this been invoked. One species succeeded and remains with us today. The other failed. Their world was quarantined for 500 years. Harper swallowed. What is the challenge? The Tarsus sector, Zelthorin said. For decades, multiple species there have been on the brink of war. Resource disputes, old hatreds, territorial claims. The Council has attempted to broker peace 17 times. All attempts have failed. The sector grows more unstable each year. War seems inevitable. The High Arbiter's crystalline features gleamed. If humanity can achieve what we could not, if you can bring lasting peace to the Tarsus sector, you will be proven worthy. Your alleged violation will be forgiven. You will have your place on the Council secured. And if we fail? Harper asked, though he knew the answer. Immediate expulsion and a century of quarantine. No trade, no contact, no protection under Council law. Earth will be completely isolated. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate watched Harper, waiting for his response. Many expected him to ask for time to consult with Earth's government. The challenge was impossible. The Council itself had failed repeatedly. No one expected humanity to succeed. But Harper understood something the Council did not. This whole situation was a trap. Someone had framed humanity to create this exact scenario. If he asked for time, if he showed hesitation, he would be playing into their hands. The real enemy was here in this chamber, watching and waiting for humanity to fail. Harper had spent 30 years as a diplomat. He had negotiated treaties, resolved disputes, and learned to read people. He knew when to be cautious and when to be bold. This was a moment for boldness. He looked directly at Zelthorin. His voice was steady and clear. We accept your challenge, the chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in surprise. Some looked shocked. Others smiled as if Harper had just signed humanity's death warrant. Zelthorin raised his hand again, calling for order. Very well, the High Arbiter said. You have 60 days to bring peace to Tarsus. The Council will monitor your efforts. May wisdom guide your path. Harper bowed and left the platform. Katie met him at the chamber exit. Her face was tight with worry. Are you insane? She whispered. The Council has been trying to fix Tarsus for decades. How are we supposed to succeed in 60 days? Harper kept walking. The Council failed because they were using the wrong approach. They tried to impose solutions from above. They talked to governments and faction leaders. But those are the people who benefit from the conflict. We need to try something different. Like what? I don't know yet, Harper admitted. But we have 5 days while we travel to Tarsus to figure it out. Get me everything we have on the sector. History, economics, culture, everything. And find out which Council species were most vocal about our guilt. I want to know who set us up. Back aboard the Horizon, Commander Bennett changed course for the Tarsus sector. The crew was nervous. They had all heard about the challenge. 60 days to achieve the impossible or face permanent exile. Harper sat in his quarters that night, unable to sleep. He had made a choice that would determine the future of humanity and the stars. If he succeeded, Earth would have respect and security. If he failed, billions of people would suffer the consequences of his decision. But Harper didn't regret accepting the challenge. Someone had tried to destroy humanity's place in the galaxy. They had assumed humans would be weak, that they would back down when threatened. Harper had just shown them they were wrong. Humanity didn't run from challenges. They faced them head-on. Now he just had to prove that humanity's courage could be matched with wisdom. The Tarsus sector waited, and with it the fate of Earth itself. Part 2, the Tarsus sector looked like a disaster waiting to happen. Harper stood on the bridge of the Horizon, watching the tactical display. Red markers showed military ships from 3 different factions. Yellow markers indicated mining stations caught in the middle. Orange zones marked areas where shooting had already started. This is worse than the report suggested, Katie said beside him. They're already fighting. Commander Bennett pointed to a cluster of civilian ships. Refugees. At least 20,000 people fleeing the contested zones. They're heading toward Council space, but most stations won't take them. Harper had spent the journey studying everything about Tarsus. The sector contained 7 star systems with valuable asteroid fields. 3 powers competed for control. The Calvarite Consortium was a warrior culture that valued honor and strength. The Thalzen Collective were traders and merchants who measured everything in profit. The free stations were independent miners caught between the 2 larger powers. The official story was simple. Everyone wanted the asteroids because they contained duranium, a rare metal needed for faster-than-light drives. But as Harper dug deeper, he found layers of complexity. The Kelverites and Thalzen had been enemies for centuries, long before joining the Council. Old wars, old grudges, old hatreds that never quite healed. "We need help," Harper said. "Katie, send a message to Earth. Request Admiral Shaw and whatever forces he can spare. Also ask for Dr. Patricia Cole. She's the best xenoanthropologist we have." "That will take at least a week," Katie pointed out. "What do we do until then?" "We listen," Harper said. "Commander Bennett, take us to that refugee convoy. I want to talk to ordinary people, not politicians." The Horizon approached the refugee ships carefully. These were civilian vessels, cargo haulers and mining shuttles never meant for long journeys. They were overcrowded and running low on supplies. Harper ordered food, water, and medical supplies transferred to them. Then he did something the Council had never done. He went aboard the refugee ships himself. Katie insisted on coming with him along with a security team. They moved from ship to ship, talking to families who had lost everything. On one freighter, Harper met a Kelverite miner named Kresh. He was an older male with scarred hands and tired eyes. "Why are you here, human?" Kresh asked. "The Council sent many diplomats over the years. None of them helped. I'm not here to talk to your leaders," Harper said. "I'm here to listen to you. Tell me what happened." Kresh told his story. He had worked the asteroids for 30 years. He had Thalzen friends, people he traded with and trusted. But when the fighting started, the governments forced everyone to choose sides. "I just wanted to mine and provide for my family," Kresh said. "But they made it about honor and duty and ancient history. Now my home is destroyed and my friends are enemies." Harper heard similar stories on every ship. Ordinary people who got along fine until their governments decided to fight. Miners who worked together until someone drew lines on a map. Families torn apart by politics they didn't care about. When Harper returned to the Horizon, he found Admiral Shaw had arrived. The Admiral brought 3 destroyers and a carrier, along with Dr. Cole and a man named Jake Morrison. Morrison was an intelligence officer with a reputation for finding secrets. "Glad you could make it," Harper said, shaking Shaw's hand. "We have a lot of work to do." Shaw was a big man with gray hair and a no-nonsense attitude. "I brought what I could spare. But Harper, we're outnumbered 10-1 if shooting starts. Hope you have a good plan." "I'm working on it," Harper said. He introduced everyone and explained what he had learned from the refugees. Dr. Cole listened carefully, taking notes. "This is a grassroots problem," Cole said. "The leadership benefits from conflict. They use it to maintain power and control. Any solution imposed from above will fail because it threatens their positions. So we go around them," Harper said. "We work with the people directly." Katie looked skeptical. The Council tried diplomatic meetings with all 3 faction leaders. "That's standard procedure. You're saying we should ignore the governments entirely?" "Not ignore," Harper said. "Just don't rely on them. We create spaces where ordinary people can choose cooperation over conflict. We prove it's possible. Then the pressure comes from below rather than above." While Harper and his team planned their strategy, Jake Morrison started his own investigation. He was curious about the weapons being used in Tarsus. Most conflicts used locally made equipment, but he noticed something odd. Advanced weapons from outside the sector were showing up on all sides. Morrison traced the shipments through black markets and shell companies. The trail led back to Council space. Someone was deliberately arming all 3 factions, ensuring the conflict continued. When he dug deeper, he found connections to a species called the Vextorians. The Vextorians were master politicians, one of the oldest Council species. They had been particularly vocal during humanity's trial. Morrison shared his findings with Harper. "They set us up," Morrison said. "The fake evidence at Kepler 442, the impossible challenge, the weapons shipments to Tarsus. It's all connected. The Vextorians want us gone, but why?" Katie asked. "What threat does humanity pose to them?" "We're different," Harper said slowly. "We think differently, act differently. Maybe that scares them. Or maybe they see us as competition." He looked at Morrison. "Keep digging. Get proof, but quietly. If we expose this now, it might derail everything we're trying to do here." Harper turned his attention back to Tarsus. He needed to create neutral zones where people from all factions could meet safely. Admiral Shaw provided protection, positioning his ships to defend these zones without taking sides. When Kelverite warships tried to blockade a neutral station, Shaw's destroyers moved into position. They didn't fire, but the message was clear. Anyone who attacked civilians would have to go through Earth's forces first. Dr. Cole worked with refugee leaders to establish the first neutral zone at an old mining station called Unity Hub. The station was run by Free Station miners who agreed to host representatives from all factions. Harper provided supplies and technical support. Within days, traders from all three groups started arriving. At first, everyone was suspicious. Kelverites and Thalzen, who had been shooting at each other weeks ago, now shared the same trading floor. But necessity made strange allies. The refugees needed supplies. The traders needed customers. Slowly, carefully, commerce resumed. Harper visited Unity Hub often. He walked the corridors and watched people interact. He saw a Kelverite mother buying medicine from a Thalzen pharmacist. He saw miners from different factions sharing drinks and complaining about their governments. He saw children playing together, not caring about ancient grudges. "It's working," Dr. Cole told him. "People are remembering they're not so different after all." But the faction leaders noticed too. They didn't like what they saw. The Kelverite Consortium declared the neutral zones illegal. The Thalzen Collective echoed the demand. Both governments ordered their citizens to evacuate Unity Hub and return to their respective territories. Most people ignored the orders. They had found something valuable at Unity Hub, peace and opportunity. But the governments weren't going to give up easily. Military forces began gathering around the neutral zones. Harper called a meeting with his senior staff. "They're going to attack," he said. "The faction leaders see the neutral zones as a threat. If ordinary people can get along without them, what do they need their leaders for?" Admiral Shaw studied the tactical situation. "We can defend Unity Hub for a while, but if both factions come at us together, we'll be overwhelmed. We need a different solution." Katie paced the room. "We're running out of time. We've been here 3 weeks. We have 5 weeks left to achieve peace or Earth faces expulsion." Dr. Cole spoke up. "The real problem is resources. Everyone's fighting over the asteroids because duranium is valuable and limited. As long as there's not enough to go around, there will be conflict. Can we find more?" Harper asked. "Maybe," Cole said. "The sector surveys focused on the inner systems where the known deposits are. But there are outer belts that have never been properly explored. They're in dangerous territory near the heliopause. Radiation, gravitational anomalies, all kinds of hazards. That's why no one bothered looking there." Harper felt a spark of hope. What if there are deposits out there? Big enough deposits that everyone could have what they need? "It's possible," Cole admitted. "But we'd need to survey the area. That takes time and specialized equipment. Then we'd better get started," Harper said. "Katie, contact the faction leaders. Tell them we want to propose a joint expedition to survey the outer belts. Equal representation from all three groups. If we find new deposits, they'll be divided equally." "They'll never agree," Katie said. "They don't trust each other." "They don't have to trust each other," Harper said. "They just have to trust us. And we've been building that trust for 3 weeks now. It's time to find out if it was enough." The proposal went out to all three faction leaders. For 2 days there was no response. Harper waited, knowing that everything depended on this gamble. If the factions refused, war was inevitable. Earth's forces couldn't stop it. The peace initiative would fail. Then the free stations responded. They agreed to join the expedition. A day later, the Kelverites sent a message. Part 3: The joint expedition launched on a gray morning. Captain Rachel Stone commanded the mission from her frigate, the Defiant. She was young for a captain, only 33, but Admiral Shaw trusted her judgment. Behind the Defiant came ships from all three factions: Kelverite cruisers, Thalzen merchant vessels, and Free Station mining craft. Dr. Kevin Wright led the scientific team. He was an engineer who specialized in deep space mining. He had studied the old survey data and believed there might be significant deposits in the outer belts, but it was only a theory. They might find nothing. Harper watched the fleet depart from Unity Hub. Katie stood beside him. "This is a big risk," she said. "If Wright is wrong, if there's nothing out there, we'll have wasted 2 weeks. We only have 4 weeks left." "I know," Harper said, "but it's the right move. Even if we find nothing, getting these people to work together is progress." The expedition faced trouble from the start. The outer belts were dangerous territory. Gravitational anomalies from a nearby neutron star made navigation difficult. Radiation levels were high. Ships had to adjust their routes constantly to avoid hazards. On the 3rd day, A Thalzen mining vessel lost power after passing through a radiation pocket. The ship began drifting toward a more intense zone. If it entered that area, the crew would die within hours. Captain Stone didn't hesitate. She maneuvered the Defiant alongside the damaged ship and extended a tow cable. It was risky. The Defiant had to expose itself to elevated radiation to make the rescue. But Stone knew this was bigger than tactics. This was about showing that humanity meant what it said about cooperation. The Defiant towed the Thalzen ship to safety. The rescued crew included the nephew of Thanaris, the Thalzen leader. The young male was shaken but grateful. He thanked Stone personally. "Your people risked themselves for us," he said. "I will not forget this." Word of the rescue spread through the fleet. The Kelverite crews, who had been skeptical of working with humans, began to see them differently. These were not weak diplomats hiding behind words. These were people willing to take action and accept risk. Dr. Wright spent his time analyzing sensor data. The outer belts were vast, and scanning them properly would take weeks. But Wright had developed algorithms to identify promising areas based on gravitational signatures and electromagnetic patterns. He narrowed the search to 3 zones. The fleet reached the first zone after 5 days. Initial scans were disappointing. The asteroids there contained iron and nickel, common materials. No duranium. They moved to the second zone. Again, nothing significant. Tensions began to rise. Krelvas, the Kelverite war leader, contacted Captain Stone. He was a massive being, covered in thick plates that resembled armor. His voice was deep and challenging. "Human, we are wasting time. There is nothing here. We should return and settle this matter the traditional way." Stone kept her voice calm. "We have one more zone to check. We've come this far. Let's finish what we started," Krelvas growled but agreed. The fleet proceeded to the third zone, deeper into the outer belts. Here the radiation was worse and the gravitational anomalies more severe. Several ships reported system malfunctions. Dr. Wright's sensors struggled with interference. Then Lieutenant Sarah Grant, monitoring long-range sensors aboard the Defiant, noticed something unusual. There was a magnetic field ahead, stronger than anything natural. "Captain," she said, "I'm picking up an anomaly. It's big." Stone ordered the fleet to investigate. As they approached, the magnetic field grew stronger. It was masking something, hiding it from normal scans. Dr. Wright adjusted his instruments to compensate. What they found took everyone's breath away. 3 massive asteroids orbited each other in a complex dance, held together by their mutual gravity. The asteroids were rich with minerals, not just uranium, but platinum, rhodium, and other rare elements. The deposits were enormous, far larger than anything in the inner systems. Wright ran the numbers 3 times to be sure. "This is incredible," he said over the fleet channel. "There's enough here for everyone. 10 times what you're fighting over in the inner systems, maybe more." For a moment the fleet was silent. Then the arguing started. The Kelverites claimed the asteroids fell within their traditional territory. The Thalzen countered that the find was in unclaimed space. The Free Station miners pointed out that no one had explored this region before, so no legitimate claims existed. Captain Stone contacted Harper at Unity Hub. "We found deposits, massive ones, but now everyone's fighting over who owns them. We need you out here." Harper took the fastest shuttle to the outer belts.
Katie came with him, along with Dr. Cole. The trip took 2 days.
During that time, the situation in the fleet grew worse. Ships from different factions stopped communicating. Some began preparing weapons. When Harper arrived, he called for a meeting aboard the Defiant. Representatives from all 3 factions gathered in the ship's conference room. The atmosphere was hostile. Everyone glared at everyone else. Harper let them argue for an hour. He listened to every claim, every counterclaim, every grievance. Then he raised his hand for silence. "You're all looking at this wrong," he said. "You're still thinking about dividing resources. That's the old way, the way that led to war. What if there's a better approach?" Thanaris, representing the Thalzen, narrowed his eyes. "What do you suggest, human?" Before Harper could answer, something unexpected happened. A junior Kelverite officer stood up. His name was Vextor, and he had been working alongside a Thalzen engineer for the past week. They had repaired ships together, solved problems together, saved each other's lives. "May I speak?" Vextor asked. Krelvas looked surprised but nodded. "I have been thinking," Vextor said. "The Kelverites are strong. We are good at heavy work, at building and operating large machinery. The Thalzen are skilled traders and refiners. They know how to process ore and find buyers. The free stations have the best pilots and transport networks. Why do we compete when we could cooperate? Each group does what it does best. We share the profits equally. The room fell silent. The idea was revolutionary. It required trust, something the three factions had lacked for generations. But working together on this expedition had started to change perspectives. An older free station miner named Cortez spoke up. I've been mining these belts for 40 years. I've seen 3 wars start over who owns what. Thousands dead for what? So some politician can claim victory. He looked around the table. My son died in the last conflict, killed by a Thalzen missile. I hated your people for years. Cortez turned to a Thalzen merchant. But this past week your engineer helped repair my ship. He didn't have to. We're supposed to be enemies. But he did it anyway. Made me realize something. We're not enemies. Our governments are. Others began to speak. Stories of cooperation during the expedition. Moments where old prejudices broke down. The Kelverite who shared his food rations with a free station pilot. The Thalzen doctor who treated injured crew from all factions without asking which side they were on. Dr. Cole watched it all with satisfaction. This was what she had hoped for. When people worked together toward a common goal, when they saw each other as individuals rather than representatives of their groups, prejudice lost its power. The debate continued for hours. Krelvas was skeptical. Trust is earned over lifetimes, not weeks. How do we know the Thalzen won't cheat us? How do they know we won't take everything by force? Harper spoke carefully. You don't know. Trust is always a risk. But consider the alternative. You go back to fighting over the inner systems. Maybe one side wins eventually, but at what cost? How many more will die? How many children will grow up hating each other? Or you take a chance on something new. Katie added her voice. In human culture, we have a saying. The best way to make a friend is to work beside them. You've done that this past week. You've saved each other, helped each other. That's worth more than any treaty. Thanaris, who had been quiet, finally spoke. My nephew tells me a human captain risked her ship to save him. That means something. Perhaps the humans are right. Perhaps it is time to try a new way. The discussion shifted from whether to cooperate to how. Dr. Wright helped them understand the technical challenges of mining the outer belts. The deposits were vast but difficult to access. They would need specialized equipment, careful planning, and coordination between all 3 groups. By the end of the day, they had the outline of an agreement. They would form the Tarsus Development Consortium, a joint venture with equal representation. Each faction would contribute what it did best. Profits would be shared. Unity Hub would serve as the consortium's headquarters, a neutral ground where all were welcome. Harper insisted on one condition. Humans would provide technical advisors for the first 5 years to help establish procedures, but Earth would have no ownership stake. This had to be a Tarsus solution, not an imposed peace from outsiders. The faction leaders agreed to take the proposal back to their governments. There would be resistance. Many people on all sides had invested in conflict, but the momentum was shifting. Ordinary citizens had seen that cooperation worked. They had found something worth building together. As Harper prepared to return to Unity Hub, Captain Stone approached him. Think it will hold? She asked. I don't know, Harper admitted. Peace is always fragile. But we've given them a foundation. Part 4, 3 months after the expedition, the Tarsus Development Consortium was officially established. The 3 faction governments had ratified the agreement. Mining operations in the outer belts were beginning. Trade through Unity Hub had increased by 300%. Most importantly, the shooting had stopped. Harper returned to Velcara Prime to report his success. This time he didn't come alone. Representatives from all 3 Tarsus factions accompanied him. They would testify that the peace was real and lasting. Senator Caroline Fisher arrived from Earth to support the presentation. She was a practical woman who understood galactic politics. She had warned Harper that success in Tarsus might make enemies as well as friends. Some council species wouldn't like seeing humans achieve what they could not. The council chamber looked the same as before, but Harper felt different. Last time he had stood here as an accused defendant. Now he came as someone who had completed an impossible task. The chamber filled with delegates from all 47 council species. High Arbiter Zeltheron called the session to order. His crystalline features gleamed under the chamber lights. Ambassador Harper, you were given 60 days to bring peace to the Tarsus sector. It has now been 90 days since you accepted the challenge. Present your report, Harper stepped forward. He had prepared a comprehensive presentation, showing everything they had accomplished. Economic data, security reports, testimonials from citizens. The evidence was overwhelming. Peace had been achieved and it was holding. The Tarsus representative spoke next. Krelvas, the Kelverite war leader, stood before the council. His presence was commanding, his voice strong. I came to Tarsus ready to die in battle, he said. Instead, I found something better. A way forward that honors all our peoples. The humans showed us this path. Thanaris, the Thalzen merchant lord, spoke of economic prosperity. In 3 months, we have earned more through cooperation than we did in 10 years of conflict. The humans taught us that peace is more profitable than war. Cortez, representing the Free Stations, spoke simply. My son died in this conflict. I thought I would die there too, still fighting. Now I have hope. My grandchildren will grow up in peace. That is because of humanity. Many delegates in the chamber seemed impressed. Some species that had been skeptical of humanity now looked thoughtful, but not everyone was pleased. Supreme Envoy Velkaroth of the Vextorians stood to speak. Velkaroth was a tall being with skin that shifted colors based on his emotions. Right now those colors were dark and troubled. The Arbiter asks us to celebrate this achievement, he said. But I have concerns. The peace in Tarsus is only 3 months old. How do we know it will last? Humanity used unconventional methods that violated established diplomatic protocols. Harper kept his expression neutral. He had expected this. The Vexitorians had been the loudest voices calling for humanity's expulsion. They wouldn't give up easily. Which protocols were violated? Selthorin asked. The humans bypassed official government channels, Velkaroth said. They dealt directly with common citizens. This undermines proper authority and creates dangerous precedents. Harper spoke calmly. The Trial of Worth specified that peace must be achieved. It said nothing about which methods to use. We found an approach that worked where traditional methods had failed 17 times. Other objections followed. The Vexitorians questioned whether human advisors remaining in Tarsus meant the trial was truly complete. They suggested the consortium would collapse without human support. Each argument was designed to cast doubt on humanity's achievement. Harper addressed each concern patiently. The human advisors could be dismissed at any time by the consortium. The peace was growing stronger, not weaker. Independent council observers confirmed everything Harper claimed, but Harper noticed something. Velkaroth was becoming desperate. His colors shifted rapidly, a sign of distress in Vexistorian biology. The envoy was fighting too hard against overwhelming evidence. It was suspicious. Zelthorin noticed it too. Your objections are noted, Supreme Envoy. However, the evidence speaks clearly. Unless there are substantive concerns, I will call for a vote on whether humanity has satisfied the trial of worth. Harper made a decision. He raised his hand. High Arbiter, before the vote, I wish to address the original charges that led to this trial. The alleged violation of the non-interference accords at Kepler 442. The chamber erupted in confusion. Many delegates assumed those charges would simply disappear if humanity passed the trial. Senator Fisher looked at Harper with surprise. This wasn't part of the plan they had discussed, but Harper had his reasons. If they wanted respect, they needed to clear their name completely. I request a full hearing on the Kepler 442 matter, Harper said. We want the record corrected, Zelthorin agreed. The evidence from Kepler 442 was presented again. Then Harper called Commander Jake Morrison to testify. Morrison had spent months investigating the conspiracy. Now it was time to reveal what he had found. Morrison presented his findings methodically. The weapons shipments to Tarsus that prolonged the conflict. The shell companies that traced back to Vexitorian operatives. The presence of Vexitorian ships in the Kepler 442 system during the time of the alleged violation. Then Commander Ryan Cruz, who had worked with Morrison on the investigation, presented the most damaging evidence. Intercepted communications between Velkaroth and Vexitorian agents. The messages explicitly discussed framing humanity and engineering the Trial of Worth scenario. The Vextorians saw humanity's diplomatic methods as a threat to their influence, Cruz said. They wanted us expelled before we could gain a foothold in council politics. So they fabricated evidence, set up an impossible challenge, and assumed we would fail. The chamber fell silent. This was an unprecedented accusation. The Vexistorians were one of the oldest and most respected council species. The idea that they would engage in such deception was shocking. Velkaroth's colors shifted through rapid patterns, showing extreme agitation. "This is a fabrication," he declared. "The humans are lying, seeking revenge for their trial. Surely the council will not believe these newcomers over a founding species." But Ambassador Martin Lee had been working behind the scenes during Harper's time in Tarsus. He had discovered that the Vexistorians had played similar games before. Lee presented historical records showing a pattern of manipulation going back centuries. 3 species were expelled from the council in past millennia, Lee said. Each expulsion followed similar patterns. Sudden charges, convenient evidence, and strong advocacy from the Vextorians. We may have uncovered a conspiracy spanning thousands of years. The revelation stunned the assembly. Delegates began questioning decades of assumptions. Trade agreements, political alliances, historical decisions. How much had been influenced by Vexistorian manipulation? Zelthorin faced a difficult situation. The evidence against the Vexistorians was substantial, but accusing a founding species would shake the council to its foundations. Many species had worked closely with the Vexistorians for centuries. The political consequences would be enormous. Harper watched the chamber descend into debate. Some species called for immediate action against the Vexistorians. Others urged caution, wanting more time to study the evidence. The session threatened to devolve into chaos. Then Harper did something unexpected. He stood and withdrew the accusation against the Vextorians. The chamber fell silent. Velkaroth looked triumphant, thinking Harper had lost his nerve. Senator Fisher stared at Harper in disbelief. But Katie Sullivan, standing at the back of the chamber, understood. Harper wasn't retreating. He was advancing in a different direction. "Humanity does not seek the punishment or expulsion of the Vextorians," Harper said clearly. "That serves no purpose. Instead, we propose reforms to council procedures, new oversight mechanisms for accusations, independent verification of evidence, transparent review of historical expulsions. These reforms would protect all species from false charges now and in the future." It was brilliant politics. Harper got what really mattered: systemic change that would prevent future abuses. He gave the council a way to address the problem without the messy business of putting a founding species on trial. And he demonstrated that humanity's diplomatic philosophy was genuine. They truly did seek cooperation over revenge. Zelthorin understood immediately. A wise proposal. "I call for a vote on the reforms Ambassador Harper has suggested." The reforms passed with overwhelming support. Every species could see the benefit of protection against false accusations. Then Zelthorin called the vote on humanity's trial of worth. The result was unanimous. Humanity had not only passed the trial, but had set a new standard for what council membership meant. As the session ended, Harper noticed Velkaroth leaving quickly. The Vextorian's colors were muted, showing defeat. He had avoided formal punishment, but his career was over. His government would recall him in disgrace. More importantly, other species were now watching the Vextorians carefully. Their influence was broken. Katie found Harper after the session. "You planned that from the beginning, didn't you? Using the conspiracy evidence but not pushing for expulsion." Harper smiled slightly. "The Vextorians wanted us gone because they saw us as a threat to their way of doing things. If we had demanded their expulsion, we would have proven them right." Part 5. 6 months passed since the council vote. Earth's position in galactic politics had transformed completely. Humanity went from barely tolerated newcomers to sought-after mediators. 7 regional disputes had been referred to human diplomats. The success rate was remarkable. Not perfect, but far better than traditional council methods. Harper now directed the council's new Conflict Resolution Institute. Katie Sullivan served as his deputy. They trained diplomats from dozens of species in the methods that had worked in Tarsus. The institute's headquarters was a new station built near Velcara Prime, funded by contributions from grateful council members. Back on Earth, President Elizabeth Grant convened a special session of the World Congress. She was a careful leader who understood that power brought responsibility. Some politicians wanted to capitalize on humanity's prestige, expanding Earth's influence aggressively. Others worried about overextension. "We're being asked to mediate disputes across half the galaxy. Grant said to her advisors. We only have 1,500 trained diplomats. We can't be everywhere at once. Admiral Frank Butler, who now commanded Earth's expanded defense forces, had his own concerns. Our military is stretched thin protecting humanitarian missions and neutral zones. If a serious threat emerges, we might not be able to respond. Dr. Amanda Price, a xenosociologist who studied cultural exchange, offered a different perspective. Something interesting is happening. We're not just mediating disputes. We're changing how other species think about conflict resolution. Younger generations especially are fascinated by human methods. This is a cultural revolution. Price had published research showing that human success stemmed from fundamental cultural traits: adaptability born from Earth's diverse environments, collaborative instincts from humanity's social evolution, and ability to question established systems because humans lacked the rigid traditions of older species. Her work sparked galaxy-wide debate. Some council species embraced these ideas. Exchange programs with Earth became highly competitive. Young aliens came to study at human universities, learning not just diplomatic techniques but the cultural mindset that produced them. But not everyone was pleased. A coalition of conservative species formed, led by the Zalthurians. They were a hierarchical civilization that valued tradition and order above all else. They saw human influence as destabilizing and dangerous. Ambassador Martin Lee, who monitored political developments, warned Harper about this new opposition. The Vexitorians acted in secret. The Zalthurians operate openly, positioning themselves as defenders of traditional council values. They're gaining support among older species who fear change. Harper met with Katie to discuss the situation. They stood in his office overlooking Earth, watching the planet rotate below. We knew this would happen, Harper said. Success always creates opposition. The question is how we respond. We could pull back, Katie suggested. Focus on Earth's interests, let the Council handle its own problems for a while. That would prove the Zalthurians right, Harper said. They're arguing we're unreliable, that we'll abandon our commitments when things get difficult. If we retreat now, we lose everything we've built. Harper decided on a different approach. He would share knowledge rather than hoard it. The Diplomatic Academy expanded its mission, becoming a joint human-alien institution. It taught not just human techniques, but a synthesis of approaches from multiple civilizations. Humans served as facilitators rather than lecturers. The first class included students from 30 species. Several came from the Zalthurian coalition. Harper personally mentored a young Zalthurian diplomat named Kethran. He showed Ran that human methods could complement, rather than replace traditional approaches. Katie led field training exercises. Mixed species teams practiced conflict resolution under supervision. The experience of working together did more to build understanding than any lecture. Prejudices broke down when people saw methods work in practice. Then a new crisis emerged that would test everything humanity had built. Reports came from the outer reaches, the frontier region beyond council space. An unknown force was conquering independent systems. Refugees fled toward council territory with tales of destruction. The council debated how to respond. Some species advocated fortifying borders and letting the outer reaches handle its own problems. Others argued for military intervention. The debate echoed old patterns: rigid positions, unwillingness to compromise, paralysis in the face of crisis. President Grant contacted Harper from Earth. The situation in the outer reaches is serious. We're getting reports of entire colonies disappearing. The Council is doing nothing. Earth is willing to lead a relief mission, but I need your assessment. Are we ready for this? Harper considered carefully. Taking the lead on such a mission would make Earth responsible for whatever happened. Success would cement humanity's role as a council leader. Failure could undo everything they had achieved. He convened his core team: Katie Sullivan, Admiral Shaw, Dr. Cole, Commander Morrison, Senator Fisher, and others who had been with him from the beginning. They discussed the risks and opportunities for hours. Admiral Shaw laid out the military realities. We don't know what we're facing. Could be a rogue AI, an extragalactic invasion, or something we've never encountered. Our forces are already stretched thin. This could expose us to dangers we're not prepared to handle. Dr. Cole offered another perspective. But if we don't act, thousands will die, maybe millions, and we'll have shown that all our talk about cooperation and responsibility was just words. Katie looked at Harper. This is like standing in the council chamber again, facing the trial of worth. Another impossible challenge. Another moment where we have to decide who we are. Harper nodded slowly. She was right. This was a defining moment. They could play it safe, protect what they had gained, and let someone else take the risks. Or they could be true to the principles that had brought them this far. We accept the mission, Harper said, but we do it our way. Not as a military conquest or a rescue operation that treats refugees as helpless victims. We offer partnership. We help the outer reaches systems organize their own defense. We provide resources and training, but let them lead their own resistance. He contacted President Grant with his recommendation. She authorized the mission immediately. Admiral Butler would lead the military component, but this was fundamentally a diplomatic mission. Harper would command overall operations. 2 weeks later, Harper stood on the bridge of a new ship. The EFS Ambassador was the first vessel of a new class designed specifically for diplomatic missions. It was a hybrid of human and alien technology, built with contributions from a dozen council species. A symbol of the new era humanity had helped create. Katie served as his executive officer. Dr. Cole led the civilian support staff. Commander Morrison headed intelligence operations. The crew was half human, half alien, another first in council history. They were heading toward the outer reaches, toward unknown dangers and uncertain outcomes. As the ambassador prepared to jump to hyperspace, Harper reflected on the journey that brought him here. A year ago, he had stood accused before the Galactic Council, facing expulsion and disgrace. He made a choice then that seemed reckless, to accept an impossible challenge rather than retreat to safety. That choice led to Tarsus, to peace where there was war, to reform where there was corruption, to hope where there was cynicism. It changed the galaxy's perception of humanity and humanity's perception of itself. Now Harper faced another impossible challenge. The outer reaches crisis could be even more difficult than Tarsus. The unknown threat might be something humanity had never encountered before. People would die. Mistakes would be made. Success was not guaranteed, but Harper had learned something important over the past year. What made humans special was not superior technology or ancient wisdom. It was the willingness to face the impossible with creativity, courage, and belief that people of goodwill could find solutions when they worked together. Katie approached as the jump countdown began. "Ready?" she asked. Harper remembered standing in the council chamber looking at High Arbiter Zelthorin, speaking the words that changed everything. "We accept your challenge." Those words had defined humanity's path. Now another challenge awaited. He smiled at Katie. "Yes, we accept." The ambassador jumped to hyperspace, carrying humanity's hopes and values toward a new frontier. Behind them, the galaxy watched and wondered what these remarkable humans would do next. Some watched with admiration, others with suspicion, all with respect. Humanity had proven it could solve impossible problems. They had shown that cooperation worked better than conflict. They had demonstrated that being new and different could be a strength rather than a weakness. Now they would face whatever lay ahead with the same spirit that had brought them this far. On Earth, President Grant watched the ambassador disappear into the void. She knew the risks. She understood that Harper and his crew might not return, but she also knew that some things were worth risking everything for. Humanity had found its place in the stars not by being the strongest or the oldest or the wisest, but by being willing to help when help was needed. In the Diplomatic Academy, young aliens from dozens of species studied human history and culture. They learned about